Hello, hello, and welcome back to Speak English with Luna. I am so incredibly happy that you chose to spend your time with me today. This podcast isn't just about grammar rules or memorizing lists of verbs. No, this is about aspirational English. It's about the life you want to live and the person you want to become using this beautiful language. Today, we have a very special episode. I am joined by a wonderful woman named Martha. Martha is 72 years young, and she has so much wisdom to share about life, regrets, and the beauty of being imperfect. Welcome to the show, Martha.
Oh, thank you, Luna. It is such a pleasure to be here with you. It's a lovely thing to see someone so passionate about helping others find their voice.
It really is my passion. But Martha, before we get into your story, I have to give my listeners a little heads up. Listeners, I have a challenge for you today. We are starting our conversation in very clear, easy English, what we call B1 level. But as Martha and I get deeper into our topic, the English is going to grow. It's going to get more complex, more descriptive, and a bit more challenging. My challenge to you is do not turn this off. Stay with us until the very end. Even if you feel a little lost in the middle, keep listening. Your brain is a muscle, and today we are going to give it a real workout. Martha, do you think they can handle it?
Oh, I know they can, Luna. You see, life is very much like that. It starts out simple when we are children, and then it gets more advanced as we grow. If you quit just because the words get a little heavy or the sentences get a little long, you miss the most beautiful parts of the story. You have to stay for the whole journey to understand the meaning.
Exactly. That is the spirit. Today's theme is life is short. Don't wait for perfect English. I hear it every day, Martha. People tell me, Luna, I will speak when I am ready. I will join the meeting when my English is perfect. I will travel when I don't make mistakes anymore. It breaks my heart because they are waiting for a day that will never come.
It's a tragedy, really. Perfection is a wall, dear, not a door. If you wait for perfection, you'll be waiting until you're my age, and you'll realize you've spent your whole life standing in front of a closed door. You know, when I was young, I was so afraid of looking silly. I wanted everything to be just right before I tried. But looking back now, the moments I cherish are the ones where I was brave enough to be messy.
That is so powerful. Brave enough to be messy. Listeners, take a deep breath. We are going to explore this idea today. We are going to help you break down that wall of perfection. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Softly. Martha, before we move forward, I want to take a moment and speak directly to the person listening right now. Maybe you are driving your car, or perhaps you are at home doing chores, and you are feeling a little bit of anxiety about your English level. I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that this podcast is a safe harbor. Here, you have total permission to make mistakes. You have permission to struggle to finish a sentence or to forget a simple word. Martha, what would you say to someone who is terrified of being judged by their accent or their grammar?
Oh, my dear, I would tell them that the people who truly matter in this world don't mind, and the people who mind, well, they don't really matter. You know, Luna, in my 72 years on this earth, I've come to the conclusion that communication is entirely about connection, not perfection. If I'm talking to you and I can feel your heart, and if I can catch the essence of your idea, I don't care if you used the correct preposition. Truly, I don't. When we look back at our lives, we don't remember the times we spoke with perfect syntax. We remember the times we shared a laugh with a stranger or offered comfort to a friend, even if we had to use our hands and simple gestures to be understood.
That is so incredibly true. When I first started teaching, I was so worried about being perfect for my students. I thought if I made one single mistake, I would lose all my credibility. But I found that when I admitted my own mistakes and showed my vulnerability, my students relaxed. They felt like they finally had permission to be human too.
That's a beautiful word, Luna. Permission. Listeners, give yourselves permission to be beginners today. Give yourselves permission to be a work in progress. You are a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time.
I love that idea. A masterpiece and a work in progress. Take a deep breath, everyone. Breathe out. You are doing just fine. Martha, you said something earlier that really stuck with me. You said perfection is a wall, not a door. That is such a profound way to look at it. I think many of my listeners feel like they are standing in front of that wall every single day. They have these amazing ideas, these complex emotions, and these professional skills, but they feel like they are trapped behind a wall of not enough vocabulary. Can you tell us a story from your own life when you realized that waiting for perfection was actually holding you back?
I certainly can, Luna. It's a memory that stays with me even after all these decades. When I was in my early 30s, oh, I must have been about 32, I had the opportunity of a lifetime. I was working as a junior curator for a small art gallery, and I was invited to a very prestigious international conference in Florence, Italy. Now, you have to understand, Luna, back then I was obsessed with being perceived as sophisticated. I had studied Italian for 2 years, but I was terrified of actually using it. I was paralyzed by the fear that my accent would sound common, or that I would stumble over my conjugations in front of these world-renowned experts.
So, you were in the most beautiful city in the world, surrounded by experts in your field, and you had the linguistic tools, but you were stuck in your own head. What happened?
Wistfully, I spent the first 3 days of that conference being a ghost. I sat in the back of the lecture halls. I stayed silent during the networking dinners. I would see these magnificent historians discussing the nuances of Renaissance art, and I had so many questions, so many insights I wanted to contribute, but I clamped my jaw shut. I was so afraid of making a mistake that I chose to be invisible instead. I was practicing paralysis by analysis. I was analyzing every sentence before I said it, and by the time I had the sentence perfect in my head, the conversation had already moved on.
Paralysis by analysis. That is a phrase every language learner needs to hear. We get so caught up in the mechanics of the language, the gears and the pulleys, that we forget to actually drive the car. It's an exhausting way to live, isn't it?
It's a heavy burden to carry, dear. But on the fourth day, everything changed. I was sitting in a small cafe near the Uffizi Gallery, feeling quite sorry for myself and my silence. An elderly Italian gentleman sat down at the table next to me. He started talking to me about the weather and then about the painting I was sketching in my notebook. Luna, his English was, by technical standards, terrible. He missed his verbs, he mixed up his genders, and his accent was as thick as a winter blanket. But he was so vibrant, he was so eager to share his passion for the local history that his mistakes didn't matter at all. He wasn't waiting for a perfect moment to connect with me. He was simply living in the moment.
I love that. He didn't let his limited English stop him from having a limitless conversation. That is exactly what I mean by aspirational English. It's about the spirit of the communication, not the accuracy of the syntax. Did that give you the courage to speak up?
It was an epiphany. I realized that while I was waiting to be perfect before I allowed myself to exist in that space, he was already existing, flaws and all. I started talking back to him. I used my broken Italian, he used his broken English, and we had the most exhilarating conversation about art and life. Pause. That afternoon, I went back to the conference and for the first time, I raised my hand. I asked the question. My voice trembled and I definitely didn't use the subjunctive correctly, but the speaker looked at me with such genuine interest. He didn't care about my grammar, he cared about my perspective.
Inspired. This is such a vital lesson for everyone listening. When you speak a second language, you aren't just communicating data, you're sharing your soul. And the soul doesn't need perfect grammar to be felt. Pause. Martha, as we look at this from a more advanced perspective, would you say that the regret of staying silent is heavier than the embarrassment of making a mistake?
Oh, without a doubt. The embarrassment of a mistake lasts for perhaps 60 seconds. It's a fleeting moment of discomfort. But the regret of silence? That can last a lifetime. When I look back at my 70s, I don't remember the mistakes I made in Italy. I remember the connections I missed because I was too proud to be imperfect. You see, Luna, life is ephemeral. It's short. We're all just passing through. If you spend your time waiting to be ready, you're essentially choosing to sit on the sidelines of your own life.
Sitting on the sidelines of your own life. Wow. Listeners, I want you to really let that sink in. Think about the meetings you didn't speak up in. Think about the person you wanted to say hello to at the airport, but didn't because you were worried about your accent. Is that silence worth the safety it provides, or is it a prison? Martha, your insight to the human condition is just beautiful. You're touching on the existential side of language learning, the idea that language is our primary tool for belonging.
Precisely. We learn languages to belong to a wider world. But you cannot belong if you are hiding behind a mask of perfection. You have to show up as you are. Even if you're B1, even if you're just starting out, your contribution is valid. Your voice, with all its errors, is a gift to the person listening because it shows you're trying. It shows you value the connection more than your own ego.
Yes, lower the ego, raise the volume. That is going to be my new motto. Martha, you've really helped us transition into a deeper understanding of why we are doing this. It's not about being a human dictionary, it's about being a human, period. All right, everyone, hold on to your seats because it's time for our word tour. This is the part of the show where we take some of those beautiful, complex expressions Martha used and break them down so you can start using them in your own aspirational English journey. Martha, you used some incredible vocabulary today that really painted a picture. Shall we look at a few?
It would be my absolute pleasure, Luna. Let's start with one that I think hits home for many. Paralysis by analysis. This is a common idiom used when someone overthinks a situation so much that they become paralyzed and cannot make a decision or take action. For example, I was suffering from paralysis by analysis trying to choose the perfect word, so I just stayed silent.
That is such a classic trap. My next favorite from our talk is safe harbor. A harbor is a place where ships go to be safe from the storm. So, a safe harbor is a metaphor for a place or a situation where you feel protected and non-judged. For example, this classroom is a safe harbor for all your grammar mistakes.
And then there is ephemeral, such a poetic, advanced word. It means something that lasts for a very short time. It is fleeting. Life is ephemeral, and so is the sting of a mistake. You could say, the embarrassment I felt was ephemeral, but the friendship I made lasted forever.
Oh, I love the sound of that word. We also heard the word epiphany. That's a moment of sudden and great revelation or realization. It's that aha moment when everything becomes clear. I had an epiphany today. I don't need to be perfect to be understood.
Exactly. And finally, let's look at the phrasal verb to stumble over. Literally, it means to trip while walking, but we often use it for speech. It means to have difficulty saying something clearly. Example, it is perfectly natural to stumble over new vocabulary when you're nervous.
We are reaching the end of our time today, but before we go, it is time for our community challenge. This is your chance to take everything Martha and I discussed and put it into practice. Martha, what do you think our listeners should do?
I want everyone listening to think about one specific moment in the next 24 hours where you usually stay silent because you are afraid of making a mistake. I want you to make the conscious choice to speak anyway.
That's it. Here is the question for our community. What is one thing you have been avoiding saying because your English isn't perfect yet? Is it a compliment to a colleague, a question in a meeting, a simple hello to a neighbor? Tell us on our social media or send us a voice note. We want to celebrate your imperfect bravery. Let's fill our community with beautiful, messy, real English. Well, we have reached the end of today's journey. Now I have to ask you, did you do it? Did you stick with us until the very end? We started with very easy sentences, but by the time Martha was sharing her deep reflections on life and regret, we were using some high-level, complex C1 English. If you are still here, listening to my voice right now, give yourself a huge pat on the back. You didn't wait for perfect comprehension, you pushed through the challenge, and that is exactly how growth happens. You lived the lesson we taught today.
It has been a true joy, Luna. To whoever is listening, remember, your life is happening right now. It isn't a rehearsal. Don't let a missing verb or a shaky accent keep you from the world. The world is waiting to hear from you exactly as you are. Goodbye and keep being brave.
Thank you so much, Martha. You are an absolute inspiration. Listeners, if you loved this episode, please subscribe to Speak English with Luna and share it with one friend who needs to hear that their English is already good enough to start living. Every share helps us build this community of brave learners. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep learning, and most importantly, keep speaking. See you in the next episode.